Welcome back to the channel, citizens. Now that you should have reached Site B after completing the puzzles in the engineering and research wings, it's time to dive in and complete the final portion of the mission that requires you to conduct an experiment and get some loot along the way. This guide will be focusing on wrapping up the Project Hyperion mission and grabbing all of the loot along the way. This is the final stretch of Project Hyperion, and it's a gauntlet of intense combat, so be ready for a challenge. If you got to this point, started watching this video, and you haven't gotten the Project Hyperion mission yet in your Moby, or haven't even reached Site B, check out my Part 1 and Part 2 guides on my channel to get caught up. Part 1 covers the missions leading up to the Project Hyperion mission itself, and Part 2 covers the new puzzles in the engineering and research wings that are part of Project Hyperion, and then sets you up to enter Site B. But with that, let's get started. If you took the elevator down to Site B, you should find yourself in an open clearing with a large elevator. As I mentioned in Part 2, when you first enter into the space, take a right, there's a small security room, and inside there's a weapon rack with your first set of Fresnel LMGs. Once you grab these, clear out the enemies and board the elevator, and use the control panel in the far right corner of it to activate it and send it down. And once it starts to descend, you have two options here. You can either try to take out as many enemies as possible before the elevator comes to a halt at the bottom, or wait to take cover behind any of the cargo containers on that base floor, but once you touch down, more enemies will spawn. Be aware, going forward there are several sections with manned Gatling turrets that NPCs can hop onto freely. This is a new feature. If you see them, prioritize the turrets as targets and make sure they stay clear. This area also features a handful of snipers hiding around as well, and throughout this section many of the enemies will respawn relatively quickly, so you will want to remain focused and move through areas quickly. Once you clear out this first section, there's going to be several boxes you can loot, specifically for Corbel arms. The first piece is right next to the freight elevator where you landed. It's hidden behind some boxes off to the left-hand side of the elevator itself. And the next piece is hidden in the far left corner of the space, essentially inside of a caged area, shown here. Once you clear out this area, there's a freight platform that moves forward to the next section, wrapping up cargo inspection. You can either take this platform forward, it works much like an elevator, or what I'm going to recommend, you can climb over some boxes onto one of the two walkways on either side. In this case, just keep things efficient, take the left side. This side provides ample cover, just beware enemies will be spawning in at the opposite end, and on this opposite side there is a Gatling gun turret you have to contest with. Just keep moving forward and be wary of the snipers on either side of the section as well as those turrets. As you push forward against the enemies, you will hit a section on the left walkway that is broken, drop down, and you will find a final set of Corbel arms here. Continue across dispatching enemies as necessary, then head into the doorway on the right-hand side of this new area. Expect plenty of enemies going forward from here. After navigating out of the cargo inspection area, you'll be entering into what I call the rails section, but first you'll have to clear a few hallways. You'll know when you hit it. This is an area with underground cargo transport systems running through it and contains opportunities to pull Corbel armor leg sets and more Fresnel LMGs. Most of the time while you move through this area, I'd recommend sticking down between the rails of this section until you clear out the enemies, as they provide a lot of protection and minimize your risk of failure, and several of the loot sections we're going to be hitting are along them anyways. When you first enter this section and drop down into the rail, turn left. There is a vent that will take you to the room you just passed a moment ago, where you likely saw some Fresnel LMGs through a window. There's also a Corbel leg box here as well. Once you're done here, backtrack. Once you exit through the vent, head straight across to the opposite side of the rail and take a left behind the wall. Here you'll find a second Corbel box that contains another set of legs. And finally, go back to the vent and go forward down the rail recess while dispatching any enemies you see. If you keep following this down, on your left under the central section of rail is the final Corbel leg piece. From here, you'll be leaving the rail section towards the reception area by destroying some mines gridded across the hallway and dispatching a handful of enemies as you go up some stairs. Watch out for these mines, they can do a lot of damage if you get caught in the blast. The reception area contains Corbel core pieces this time. Simply dispatch the enemies around the room before you proceed. The first box is located behind a planter located in the far right corner from where you entered the space. The second is behind the reception desk. You can access the reception desk by heading past the metal detector checkpoints and wrapping around to the back of it. You're going to find a few things within the reception desk itself. The first is the Project Hyperion door code, which is above the check-in desk on a monitor. In the same space is the next Corbel core piece, as well as a set of Fresnel LMGs. Before you head out, make sure you make note of the code on the monitor. From here, simply exit the reception desk and use the code on the bright red door in front of you. Once you've entered the code and cross into the next room, take a hard left and you'll find the final core piece for this section. This location, that I call the storage area, is a large open space with raised balconies with manned minigun turrets. This section is where things get truly chaotic, and you'll want to be extra careful moving forward. You will again want to prioritize taking out any NPCs that hop on the miniguns, as they can be incredibly dangerous and take you down within seconds once they start firing. Essentially what you'll be doing across the space though is you need to fight your way through enemies on 2 floors, and it's important to note the ones on the ground floor are way easier to deal with from the top floor by peeking through the railings on the balconies. But before we proceed, I do want to provide a heavy warning. I had all kinds of weirdness during this portion on quite a few runs, enemies spawning directly on turrets in areas you just cleared, seemingly endless enemies that keep spontaneously spawning in from nowhere. All you can really do to address this is take extra caution, and keep moving and using cover constantly, and always have a way out from whatever position you take. But what I'd recommend to clear this is to go ahead and take the left entering into the area and follow the balconies. As you fight through, you should come across a computer terminal up here, make note of the code, and finish off as many of the enemies downstairs from the balcony above as possible. Once you go down the stairs, take a hard left and you'll find the first Corbel backpack. Now head up the second set of stairs you haven't used yet and enter the room at the top to your immediate right and use the code from earlier. Inside you'll find 2 Corbel backpacks and Fresnel LMGs for this section. Once you're done looting everything, head downstairs and walk towards the far right corner, taking out enemies in your way, and enter into the Project Hyperion door ahead. And with that, we're nearly done. But be warned, if you wish to avoid spoilers, stopping the video now should prevent anything major. Feel free to go ahead and pause the video, and then come back if you want to just wrap everything up. Now let's proceed into spoiler territory. Now, upon entering the Project Hyperion lab itself, you'll go through a red security door into a room with a bunch of specimens and large green tubes. The atmosphere here is particularly chilling, and unsettling creatures are preserved in a stasis state in eerie green lighting. From here, follow the path, but instead of approaching the big red door on the opposite side of the room, cut to the right and grab the first Corbel helmet before proceeding. Be warned, however, once you approach the red door, heavy enemies will begin spawning in. Dispatch them and keep moving forward. Once you enter into the new section with the Vandal at the center of it, take a hard left and you'll find the second helmet. Once you grab this, go to the doorway furthest from you and climb up into the next area, and on your immediate left is the final helmet, as shown here. Do be aware this is also the area where you'll be finalizing the Hyperion mission itself by executing the experiment. Simply put, you do this by entering your regents and your selected catalyst, which you received by completing one of the 3 mission options before entering into Site B. Depending on which of those 3 missions you completed, you'll be provided one of the 3 recombinant types, which can be turned into Wikelo for additional Corbel sets primarily. But he does offer a matching LMG as well. And that's it, citizens. We've successfully navigated the combat and completed the full Project Hyperion mission, while grabbing some great new gear along the way. This mission is repeatable for over 600k aUEC, as well as for looting purposes, and you do not have to complete the mission if you want to loot the armor and the LMGs. I hope this guide helped you conquer the mission and claim those rewards. If it did, please consider hitting that like button to help other citizens find this guide. If you want to stay up to date with all my Star Citizen content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. If you have any questions or want to share your own Site B experiences, leave a comment down below. Also, I just opened a community Discord, so feel free to hop in there with any questions you might have. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.